Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So I got a new microphone, so I'm praying to whoever is up there that this time won't fuck up. Anyways, the other day, I was on Tumblr. Don't ask me why, because I keep just finding this crap, but I just keep going back for the pretty pictures and quotes, and then something happens. This time, I came across this article that, of course, everyone on Tumblr was agreeing with and saying, oh my god, this is so true, blah blah blah. Well, we'll see about that. Anyways, the title of this article is Women Are Having Sex Out of Politeness and That's Got to Stop. So, to begin with, I wanted to have a little bit of an open mind, and I wanted to say I do think that in some circumstances, women, and men too, but let's stay just specific to women because that's what this article is about, do have sex out of politeness. But instead of saying politeness, I would say fear. Because, for example, if a woman is in an abusive relationship and she knows that if she does not have sex with him, he will beat her, then yes, she'll probably choose to have sex with him. But that's not politeness. That's for your own safety, right? You know that there are going to be negative ramifications if you don't do the thing. However, out of politeness kind of implies that you could be rude and just be like, hey, I don't want to do this. So it was a very confusing read, and it's quite long because it gives a little bit of an anecdote, an example. I'll link it below, assuming they won't pull it down by the time I post this, but let's just look at some parts of this. So, the article starts out by the author talking about this time she went to supper with a middle-aged couple. They made curry. She didn't like the curry, but she didn't say anything and ate it to be polite. And then after, they all went up to the bedroom and had a threesome, and she wasn't into that either, but she did that to be polite too. Which, honestly, like, cool story, I guess, but at the same time, giving your own anecdote where nothing actually happens and it seems like you could have easily said, hey, my stomach hurts, I want to go. Like, if you don't want to be straightforward with someone, if you're not brave enough to be straightforward with someone, if you're not comfortable enough to be straightforward with someone, you can always make something up to get out of the situation, which is why here, I understand it might come off as rude to just eat and go when there was an understanding that some shit was gonna happen in the bedroom later, but at the same time, it seems like such a first world kind of problem to me, the way that this is being put. And I'm setting this aside from all abuse kind of situations, because in abuse situations, a lot of times you have to do whatever it is that will save you. So we're not talking about that at all. We're talking about a normal situation. So at one point, this person read a short story in the New Yorker called Cat Person, and it was about a 20-year-old woman who had had sex like I did out of politeness. It transpires that this experience is not uncommon. Have you ever had sex just to be polite? I threw out as a question. Yes came the answer, yes, yes, yes. Now, I'm gonna be straightforward. I can't relate because I just can't relate. I don't think I would be able to do that. Just like mentally and physically, I just don't think I'm capable of it. And she was saying that with boyfriends, best friends, employers, family friends, older guys, younger guys, guys you might have fancied under different circumstances. So then she goes on to say, I'm pretty sure the majority of my sexual experiences in my teens and 20s were done out of politeness. Says Maya, 28, you end up in a situation where you're worried about offending someone if you don't go ahead, whether you've led them on, or what they'll think about themselves if you back out at the last minute. And in relationships, I've had sex when I definitely did not want to, but just kind of felt bad about not doing it. What if the other person thought that I thought they were crap in bed or didn't fancy them anymore? So this got even more interesting because it seems a little bit of a neurosis, and I mean that in a non-technical term. I'm not trying to diagnose anyone, but it seems like a lot of anxiety and paranoia over imagining what someone else is gonna think or how someone else is gonna react. And granted, I'm completely guilty of that. I overthink, I freak out, I think everything is the end of the world. But at the same time, to, I guess, magnify this issue of saying, hey, I don't feel like having sex with you anymore, or I still like you, I'm just not in the mood, or I'm not feeling well today, whatever. To think that the person will automatically think that you aren't attracted to them or that you think they're a piece of shit. I mean, I can understand the worry, but does that really mean that you have to go so far as to have sex out of politeness? And I'm not trying to shame anyone that does have sex out of politeness. It's just like, I feel like there's a way that it could be avoided for both people, because if that person ever found out that you had sex with them just to be polite, I feel like they'd feel 20 times worse and just be like, why didn't you just tell me you weren't in the mood? And I think that there are a lot of factors to consider in this too, because the reality is people can be self-conscious and one day just like, you know, those days when you wake up and you just feel like your whole body is disgusting, whereas there's some days where you wake up and you're like, hey, I look pretty good. Well, if you're having one of those shit days, you probably don't want anyone else to see you naked, so you could just say, hey, I don't want to. But to put your feelings aside and prioritize someone else's feelings might be very, what's the word I'm looking for? Altruistic, but at the same time, wouldn't you prefer transparency? Like, these little white lies probably aren't a huge thing in the big scheme of things, but I would hate if anyone ever agreed to have sex with me out of politeness. I would honestly be so insulted. I'm not only insulted, but I would feel like shit. There are hundreds of reasons why, but they all boil down to the same thing. We're nice girls. We've been raised to be nice, sweet, don't hurt anyone's feelings, don't disturb the peace. You're sugar and spice and all things nice, remember? So of course this had to come to a bit of a feminist kind of thing. And I'm not saying that this is feminist in the bad way. I do think that women, girls, whatever, are generally socialized to be ladylike, right? And I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with being ladylike. The thing is, to me, being ladylike is the same as being a gentleman. It's being a respectable and decent human being. Gentleman is for men, ladylike is for women. I don't think I would be considered ladylike by the older definition because I have tattoos, I swear, like a sailor, whatever. But just because we've been raised in a certain way, it doesn't mean that we have to follow that path that was apparently set for us. Like, you don't have to be nice in certain occasions, you don't have to be sweet, you don't have to not hurt anyone's feelings, and obviously it's not the goal to hurt anyone's feelings, but you see what I'm saying? It's just like, you can't say, oh, this is how we're raised, so we're gonna follow it even if we hate it, even if it makes us uncomfortable, even if it makes us physically do things in order to not hurt someone's feelings and follow our little trail of being nice girls. Then they bring it to the inconvenient but true aspect of safety. You know that you would never ever lose your temper if a woman changed your mind about sex. She doesn't know that. You might know that you're not violent, that you'd drive her home or call her an Uber or suggest you watch a film instead. She doesn't. Women die at the hands of angry men all the time. I'm not being dramatic and I'm not suggesting for a moment that all men are violent, but the thing is, the violent ones don't always wear signs around their necks. So here we go to the point that I was making about abuse. So it's a different story if you're trying to shield yourself from potentially being hurt. The thing is the real solution to be extremely suspicious of all men to the point where you don't feel comfortable saying, hey, I really don't feel like having sex? Because I can understand that it would be uncomfortable and maybe perhaps a little scary in the moment because you never know anyone, and that goes with women, like with women as well. Women can be abusive too. You never know who you're dealing with. What do you guys think? Is this the best way to avoid like a violent conflict like that? To assume that everyone is violent or scary or could lose their shit, so you're just gonna be polite and have sex with them? What do you think is the solution to that? For me, it's being transparent. And yes, I realize that being transparent means that you might put yourself in danger, but this goes back to setting up a system of security where you have a couple of friends who know who you are, you have a code word you can text someone if shit is getting out of hand. Like, I think that a lot of this has to do with precaution rather than what to do in the exact moment. It's setting up a system of security so if the thing happens that you were scared was gonna happen, you can do something. I don't know, this whole article caught me very off guard. It seems very based on worrying about the other person's feelings, but at the same time also worrying about the way you come across. Because the reason that you're not telling them, hey, I don't want to have sex with you, is also so you don't come across as a bitch. But at the same time, you're also telling them so you don't hurt their feelings. So I'm wondering how much of this is also a little bit of narcissism, and I don't mean that in like an insulting way. I'm just genuinely wondering what the kind of percentage here is. Like, how does this sexual politic kind of issue work? Thank you guys so much for watching. I know this was another weird one, but let me know what you think. Anyways, let's get into the fan art.